One of the new modules in JobPro is the locations module. Now locations will usually be used for the purpose of tracking stock at a location, but it actually has a separate use if you also rent out rooms or need to book rooms as well. You can create a location record and treat it as a room and treat it as a resource that you can book in on jobs and tasks. So it could be for meetings, or it could be a location like a studio that you need to use for a job, or it could be a full building. So when we're creating a new location, you specify the location name and the type. Now you can have your own default types appear. So in setup, under list of menus, you can specify what you want to see in this list. So let's say it's an office and it's something that's bookable. Now it could be something like a studio here, bookable studio, and then the usage for this is not necessarily stock use, but it's for rental use. So you might even stock items at this location that you use for renting out. But the fact that you flagged this particular location as bookable means that you can then book that on a job or on a task and even charge out and set charge out rates for that location as well. The bookings tab gives you more information relating to bookings for a location, like previous bookings and the charge out rate per hour that you want to do when you're renting out this particular location. But for most companies using this system, locations will be about stock locations, where they'll store goods for sell use. And if you've got multiple locations in the system, you can then, when you're receiving goods on a purchase order, or you're using goods or selling goods through invoices or shipping, you can then specify what location the goods are coming from. So if we're looking at a particular product, and if that product is tracked at multiple locations, we can then see what quantities are at what location. So let's say here we want to introduce into stock, we're setting up the system and we're putting in our opening balances, and we're also saying that there's 10 of these in a second location. So we'll add in an amendment and we'll say in the unit T5 warehouse, we'll specify that there is a quantity of 10 there. Because this item is tracked by serial numbers, we can then specify what serial numbers to use for those 10 items. So we can auto enter the serial numbers as well. So now we can see that this particular product is stocked at 2 locations, what the quantities are, what the type of locations they are as well, and we can do transfers of stock between locations. And we can specify then what serial numbers we're using for that transfer, if the product is tracked by serial numbers. And now we can see that there's 12 at that location and 3 at that location. You can also assign a default location in and default location out to each identity in the system. So if, for example, you've got multiple stores or multiple departments or multiple offices, you can, in setup, you can go into My Company, and in there you can set up multiple identities, and for each identity you can specify that for stock movements to default location in to be a specific location for this identity, and the default location out potentially is a different location for that identity when you're either introducing goods into stock like on a PO, or removing goods from stock like on a shipping record or an invoice. It will then default to the correct location that you normally use.